The first time I saw a wedding dress, it was soaked in blood. My cousin Maya was 13, too thin for the beating, too pale for the henna. Her new husband was 43, with 2 dead wives and teeth stained like old tobacco. I watched her walk down the hallway like she was heading to the gallows, and I knew, if I wanted to live, I had to disappear, from the inside out. My name is Sophia. I was born in Ohio, but I didn't belong to Ohio. I belonged to the house. The house spoke Arabic and cooked lamb by the pound. The house believed daughters were debts waiting to be collected. The house was ruled by my father's silence and my mother's obedience. In my family, a girl's life began and ended with her blood. The moment it came, she was a bride. It didn't matter if she was 12 or 15. You bleed, you belong to a man. That was the law, unspoken but brutally enforced. When Maya bled, she was promised within 3 days to a man who looked like he'd walked out of a nightmare. Rami was his name. 2 dead wives. 1 accident. 1 illness. No one asked questions, because questions were dangerous. I watched Maya shrink inside her own skin, and I knew I'd be next. So I starved myself. Quietly. Methodically. It wasn't about body image. It was about buying time. I read that you needed body fat to trigger puberty, so I counted every bite. I became the ghost of myself, cheekbones sharp as warnings, wrists like twigs. My mother called me sickly. My father called me weak. But weak girls didn't get married. Weak girls bought time. I didn't just stop eating. I started learning. One day, in 7th grade, I got called into the counselor's office because a teacher noticed how skinny I'd gotten. While she stepped out to use the bathroom, I saw her drawer slightly open. A pamphlet had slipped out. Your rights as a teen, when culture becomes a crime. I took it. Slipped it into my waistband like a criminal. That night, under a flashlight in my blanket cocoon, I read it cover to cover. Then I read it again. And again. My hands trembled the whole time. I learned about CPS, emergency protective orders, and mandated reporters, words no one in my family dared speak. I started writing everything down, addresses, phone numbers, trigger phrases like I'm 15 and they're forcing me to marry. I memorized them like verses from a survival Bible. I started teaching them to my cousins in secret, the ones who hadn't bled yet. We met in an old toolshed behind my uncle's house. Called it the Wife Skills Club in front of the boys, but inside we whispered truth. We practiced saying it, they're forcing me to marry. Please help. Over and over, until we could say it with straight faces and shaking hands. Then one morning, it happened. The blood came. It soaked through my nightgown during morning food prep, the crimson spreading like betrayal. My mother screamed with joy. My aunties cheered. The house exploded in celebration. I smiled with them, played my part, because inside, I was already planning my escape. By that night, the deal had been made. My groom? Rami. The same man Maya had married. The same man whose last wife had fallen down the stairs. 2 days to plan. I had already hidden a plastic bag behind the ceiling tile in the bathroom, a change of clothes, rewritten addresses, and 20 crumpled dollars I'd stolen $1 at a time. When the wedding morning came, I feigned sickness. My mother wasn't convinced, but a sick bride was bad luck. She gave me 5 minutes. I locked the bathroom door. Climbed onto the toilet. Removed the ceiling tile. Grabbed the bag. The window was barely bigger than my hips, but starvation had made me small. I pushed the bag through, then myself. The lock splintered behind me. I jumped. I hit the ground wrong. Twisted my ankle. But I ran. Barefoot. Bleeding. Breathless. Dogs barked. Lights flickered. Cars revved. I heard Omar, my cousin, yelling to check every street. I knew they'd chase me, so I ran in zigzags, ducked through hedges, crawled beneath parked cars. A shard of glass sliced my heel. I didn't stop. I made it to the bus stop just as the city bus arrived. I had no money. The driver saw me, torn nightgown, bloodied feet, and nodded. "Get in, baby," she said. I still don't know her name, but I remember her voice. I sat beside an old woman who gave me tissues and didn't ask questions. She shielded me with her coat when Omar's car drove past. Downtown, I limped into the courthouse. Asked for a protective order. "I'm 15, I told the clerk. "They're forcing me to marry today." The judge granted it right there. But then came the problem: no shelter beds. The soonest they could take me was 3 days later. I remembered Ms. Clark, a teacher who'd once accidentally left her drawer open. It wasn't an accident. I knew it now. I took 3 buses to get to Jefferson High. Found her in her classroom, grading papers. She took one look at me and wrapped me in her arms. That's when I cried for the first time. Real tears. Not the ones I faked to escape, the kind that come when someone finally sees you. They didn't stop when I ran. My father, my uncles, even cousins I used to build pillow forts with, they all turned into something else that day. Wolves with my scent. Their pride had been wounded, and in our culture, wounded pride demands blood. Miss Clark took me in that night. She didn't have to. But she did. She made me tea and tucked my feet into a warm basin of salt water. The sting reminded me I was alive. She called CPS again. Called the legal aid hotline. Called a nurse friend to clean and dress my wounds. The calls kept coming to my phone. I'd reset it once, but they found me again. Someone was feeding them breadcrumbs. That's when I stopped trusting everyone except Ms. Clark. Even then, she insisted, "We'll need evidence, Sophia. Hard proof. Bruises. Photos. Witnesses." I had one. Her name was Layla. She'd married Rami before Maya. Everyone thought she died in childbirth. But that was a lie. I'd heard whispers at Maya's wedding. That Layla was sent away, not dead. Too damaged to remarry. I remembered the name of the town they said she'd gone to, some distant cousin in upstate New York. I told Ms. Clark. She made calls, sent letters. For weeks we heard nothing. I thought Layla was gone for good, until one Thursday morning, a reply came. A shaky voicemail from a blocked number. "This is Layla. I know what they're doing. I'll testify. Just tell me where." We arranged it quietly. The court set a hearing date for the protective order. Rami hired a lawyer with money, with threats. My family showed up in suits, their eyes knives behind polite smiles. My mother didn't cry, she glared. Like she was watching her own daughter commit treason. Their lawyer argued it was cultural. That I was confused, delusional. They even printed out photos of me in dresses, smiling at weddings, playing with kids. "See," he said, "she loves children. She's always been excited to marry. This is a phase. Teen angst. American poison." Then Layla walked in. Alive. Gaunt. Hands trembling. She took the stand and told the room what Rami had done. The accidents. The isolation. The beatings. The pregnancy after pregnancy until her kidneys failed and his mother, yes, his mother, forged her death certificate to ship her out like trash. The courtroom went silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Layla looked straight at me. "You don't owe them silence," she said. My family unraveled. Right there in court. My father stood up and called Layla a liar. My uncle tried to storm the bench. Security intervened. My mother finally cried, not because I was free, but because her plan had fallen apart. The judge extended the emergency protective order. Ordered a full investigation. I was officially declared a ward of the state, placed in Theodora Whitman's home, a retired trauma nurse who'd taken in girls like me before. But the war wasn't over. That's when the retaliation began. My father took to Facebook, a long post about his sick daughter who'd been brainwashed by radicals. A photo of me from age 10 smiling with cousins. Comments flooded in, some from strangers, some from old neighbors. Calling me dishonorable, sick, Americanized filth. They made TikToks, Instagram reels, hashtags. All to destroy me. And it wasn't just words. One night, someone slashed Theodora's tires. Another time, 2 men tried to break the backyard lock. Theodora installed more cameras, sensors, motion lights. But I didn't sleep well anymore. Every knock at the door turned my stomach. Every phone buzz felt like a grenade. Then came the worst part. Betrayal. Her name was Miriam. 14. Part of our secret wife skills group from the shed. I'd taught her the phrases. She'd cried in my arms the night her engagement was announced. But she was the one who leaked my location. How do I know? Because 2 nights after I let her borrow my backup phone to call a hotline, my uncle showed up at that very same bus stop. Claimed it was a coincidence. But he knew the shelter name. Knew Theodora's neighborhood. We traced the call logs. Miriam had called no hotline. She'd called her mother. When I confronted her, she cried. I had to, she said. They promised they'd call off my wedding. They said if I helped them find you, I'd be spared. She'd sold me to buy her own freedom. It didn't work. She was married off a week later. After that, I stopped waiting for the system to save us. I became the system. I started distributing disguised pamphlets. Legal guides folded into homemaking manuals. Emergency numbers printed inside fake Quranic bookmarks. I called it the Liberty Circle. It started with 4 girls. Then 12. Then 28. We used school bathrooms, library computers, Instagram group DMs labeled as makeup tutorials. Our signal phrase? Do you have a recipe for lentil stew? That meant, I need out. We saved 6 girls that year. They ran just like I did, bloody, barefoot, and terrified. But they ran. And every time they made it, the fear inside me shrank just a little. I used to think freedom would feel like sunlight. Warm. Soothing. Final. Turns out, freedom's loud. It's alarms at 2 a.m. It's headlights slicing through blackout curtains. It's your heart pounding every time a floorboard creaks. After Layla's testimony, after the court granted protection, after the world learned I was still alive, my family shifted tactics. No more chasing me down in the street. Now they used lawyers. Their lawsuit came wrapped in gold foil and false virtue. Defamation. Cultural defamation. Emotional distress. They wanted money, or silence. I had neither. But Theodora, God bless that woman, made calls. Found a nonprofit in D.C. that paired me with a lawyer named Asha. Somali American. Smart as hell. Calm like a bomb. She read the suit, closed the folder, and said, "They're trying to scare you back into the cage." "I'm not going back," I told her. Then we fight. And fight we did. Every week was a new motion. A new hearing. A new headline. They dragged my name through courtrooms and comment sections. My old mosque denounced me. Some of the girls in the Liberty Circle backed out, scared they'd be next. I didn't blame them. But I didn't stop. Because the circle had grown. What started as a few cousins in a shed was now reaching girls in 3 states. We used code language on TikTok. We slipped guides into donated clothes at refugee centers. We partnered with a tattoo artist in Chicago who etched emergency contact numbers in invisible UV ink, a lifeline you couldn't burn. We were shadows, but organized ones. And that terrified them. Which is probably why they escalated. The breach happened on a Sunday. Theodora and I had just finished dinner, pasta and garlic bread. Something normal. Something human. Then we heard the window shatter. Theodora didn't panic. She grabbed the baseball bat she kept behind the pantry door, shoved me into the back room, locked the door, and hit the panic button. The house had 4 security cameras, motion sensors, and a direct line to a police dispatcher. But even with all that, it took 7 minutes for the cops to arrive. 7 minutes. Long enough for them to trash the living room, smash her computer, leave a single item untouched, a printed photo of me as a child, with the words traitor scrawled across it in red marker. The police called it intimidation. I called it war. We moved again. Different house. Different locks. Different neighborhood. I stopped going to school in person. Enrolled in an online charter. Ms. Clark still checked in, brought me groceries, helped me study for the SAT. She even found a way to keep the Liberty Circle running, through her niece, a nursing student with tech skills and nerves of steel. Together, we built a secure app hidden in a cooking blog. Girls could request help using ingredient substitutions. Need escape? Substitute cumin for cardamom. Need a shelter? Ask how to store soaked lentils. The police were overwhelmed. CPS underfunded. Judges cautious. But we weren't waiting on heroes anymore. We were building our own army. Still, court was coming. Again. This time, they brought cameras. My parents gave an exclusive interview to a Cultural Values YouTube channel, twisted the whole story. Called me a runaway. A danger to herself. Said I was being used by political forces and accused Layla of being a mentally unstable woman with no credibility. Then they unveiled their surprise witness. Miriam. The same girl who betrayed me before. She took the stand and told the judge I'd coerced her into making false reports. That I'd brainwashed her with anti-cultural propaganda. That I had lied about everything, even my own abuse. I watched her speak. She wouldn't meet my eyes. But her hands were shaking. Her mother sat in the front row, eyes burning holes through her skull. I knew that posture. That silence. I'd worn it once. So when it was my turn, I didn't talk about pamphlets or shelters. I told them what it's like to press your face to a locked window while your mother holds the wedding dress you're meant to die in. I told them about the pot scars. The bleach baths. The lashes on Fridays. I showed them the photo they left in Theodora's house. My voice didn't shake. Not once. Then Asha stood up and dropped the final blow. I hid an audio file. An old WhatsApp voice message from Rami, dug up from Layla's confiscated phone, bragging about how the young ones don't last, but they give you the most children before they break. The judge froze. Miriam's mother stood up and walked out. No one followed her. The court ruled in my favor. Again. Full immunity from defamation. Case dismissed with prejudice. And more than that, a domino effect. The judge referred Rami's message to the DA's office. An investigation opened. They froze his assets. Subpoenaed my family's phones. Found marriage contracts for girls as young as 12. Within a month, 4 other girls from our community came forward. And that's when the state finally acted. The Liberty Circle wasn't a shadow network anymore. It became a legal one. Registered. Funded. Formal. We hired social workers. Partnered with safe houses. Published a guidebook, Freedom is not Western, it's human. We printed 10,000 copies. Distributed every one. Sometimes I still see her. Not Layla. Not Maya. Not even Miriam. I see her, that girl I used to be. Frail. Quiet. Smiling in photos with dead eyes. I see her in the mirror when I'm not looking close enough. She's still there, like smoke after a fire. But I'm not her anymore. After the trial, after the circle became real, things moved fast. Too fast. The DA's office launched a broader probe. Rami was arrested, not just for Layla, but for what they found in encrypted messages. transactions, dowries, photos. One file simply titled Bride List 2022. XLSX. My name was on it. So were 13 others. Ages ranged from 11 to 16. The feds got involved next. Interstate trafficking, fraud, child endangerment. They called it a cultural pipeline, like it was some organized smuggling ring, and in truth, it was. Marriages arranged, money exchanged, girls exported across state lines. What they didn't know was that some of the girls on that list were already gone. Buried. Lost. Vanished. That guilt, it never leaves. But neither did my purpose. The Liberty Circle spread. Florida. Michigan. Arizona. One of the girls we helped, Nadia, started a chapter in Minnesota. Her version focused on Somali girls. In Texas, a Latina named Isela translated our guides into Spanish and adapted them for girls escaping cartel-arranged marriages. We had a network now. Real funding. Volunteers. Law students. Paralegals. Shelter liaisons. Even one retired federal agent who trained us in counter-surveillance. But with growth came cracks. One of our safe houses got compromised. Again. They knew our intake name. The code phrase. They used it to lure a girl in, and she never showed up at her assigned contact point. Her phone pinged one last time near the state line, then went dark. We learned later it was an uncle. He'd posed as a volunteer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked Theodora's backyard for hours, clutching my burner phone like it was a crucifix. I didn't cry, I'd stopped crying a long time ago, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The next day, we rebuilt every protocol. Changed passwords. Moved safehouses. Switched apps. New aliases. We'd gotten sloppy. Trusted too many. I made a list of everyone who had access. I stared at that list for hours. And I circled one name. Not Miriam. Someone else. A girl we'd taken in just 6 months before. Sweet. Quiet. But always asking a few too many questions. We traced her device history. Found screenshots, dozens of them. Legal names. Addresses. Intake dates. She was feeding them everything. We confronted her. She didn't deny it. They promised they'd bring my sister back, she said, hollow. They said if I helped them, they'd let her go. She was 13. I didn't press charges. I couldn't. She'd been used, same as us all. But she had to go. No more contact. No more access. I watched her walk out the door like a ghost who'd forgotten she was already dead. That night, I got a message from an old number. One I hadn't seen since the day I ran. My mother. Your grandmother is dying. She wants to see you. Come home. Be a daughter. I didn't reply. An hour later, she sent a photo of me, age 6, asleep in her lap. Captioned only, "She misses you." I stared at it a long time. Then I replied. I'll come. But not to your house. Not to his house. Meet me somewhere public. She agreed. We met in a coffee shop on the far side of the city. She wore a scarf over her hair and heavy sunglasses. Sat with her back to the window. Her hands trembled around the teacup. You've gotten thinner, she said. Trauma's a hell of a diet, I replied. She flinched. We sat in silence. Just air between us and 100 words that refused to be spoken. Then she whispered, your father, he's not well. Neither are the girls he sold. Her lips pressed tight. I never wanted this for you. You held me down while they sewed gold into my wedding dress. I was trying to survive. I was trying to escape. She looked at me then, really looked. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see a mother. I saw a woman. Fragile. Complicit. Broken. A woman who did not know how to love a daughter who refused to be a slave. I loved you, she said, quietly. I believe you, I said. But I don't forgive you. She nodded once. That was all. Before I left, she handed me something. A photo, me, Layla, and Maya, all as children. Sitting on a swing. Before we bled. Before we broke. Back when we were still girls. The courthouse smelled like metal and coffee. It always did. Same plastic chairs. Same tired bailiffs. Same distant hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Only difference now, I wasn't the girl begging for help at the clerk's desk. I was the one walking in through the witness door with a security escort and a folder full of names that should have never existed. This time, it wasn't about me. It was about them. The government had built a case against Rami, my father, 3 uncles, and 6 other men linked by marriage exploitation. A federal task force had called it systemic abuse masked as cultural tradition. They were right. But it still didn't sit well in my stomach. Because culture wasn't the villain, control was. I was there to testify. Not about what happened to me, that was old news now, but about what I'd learned. The documents I'd collected. The maps, the names, the wedding contracts signed with thumbprints and silence. I sat on the stand and gave them a timeline of how girls vanished. Sometimes it started with a party dress. Sometimes a secret trip overseas. Sometimes just a father saying pack your things. I told them about the groom files. About the Liberty Circle's rescue database. About how we coded our notes to avoid detection, weddings marked as celebrations, brides as recipients, ages reversed to avoid suspicion. Some of the names on that list were already confirmed missing. Others were found. One, we learned, was buried behind a warehouse in Dearborn. They found her after one of the arrested men offered information for a reduced sentence. Her name was Amira. She was 14. The prosecutor asked if I knew her. I said yes. We shared a school bus once. I didn't cry. Not in that courtroom. But later, I found a bathroom stall, locked it, and bit down on my own wrist until the scream couldn't leave. After my testimony, the judge issued a gag order on the press. But that didn't stop the storm online. A deepfake video of me started circulating, something doctored to show me laughing as I burned a Quran. I knew it was fake. Anyone who knew me knew it was fake. But that wasn't the point. The point was to turn the tide. To call me a Western spy. A liar. A disgrace. It worked. We lost donors. Our server crashed from a DDoS attack. A radio show host called me the poster child for moral decay. Then our Liberty Circle app was hacked. Not the blog, not the codebook, the encrypted app we'd spent months building. They exposed names. 3 girls had to be relocated within 24 hours. One got sent back to her parents before we could reach her. I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. We took shifts re-encrypting, reissuing burner phones, pulling girls from bus stops, hiding them in motel bathrooms until rides arrived. Theodora's eyes looked heavier than I'd ever seen them. This is bigger than us now, she said quietly, watching the sun come up through the blinds. You started a fire. Now it's a damn wildfire. She wasn't wrong. Within a week, another case broke in Missouri. A compound run by a cultural cooperative, turned out it was a marriage farm. Girls groomed and married off to sponsors from overseas. The feds called us. Not to shut us down. To help. We fed them everything we had, layouts, names, codes, how the rotations worked, which buses they used, how weddings were announced with fake charity events. It was surreal. Sitting in a federal briefing room, watching armed marshals plan a raid based on notes I'd scribbled in a moldy shed when I was 14. When they moved in, they pulled out 11 girls. 7 underage. One had a fractured wrist from trying to climb out a second-story window the night before. They'd called it liberation. To us, it was just Tuesday. After that, things changed. Senator Dreyfus, a woman I'd never heard of until that week, introduced a bill, the Liberty Act. It proposed a nationwide ban on underage marriage under any circumstance. No exceptions for religion. No exceptions for parental consent. Mandatory reporting training for teachers in high-risk communities. Funding for shelters. Legal aid expansion. And at the top of the draft? Informally inspired by the work and testimony of Sophia H. I read it twice before I realized it was real. Then I read it again. Not because I needed to, but because no one had ever written my name in something that mattered before. It happened in a grocery store. Just like that. I was walking past the rice aisle, half listening to a podcast, when I saw her. She was reaching for a bag of basmati. Same sharp cheekbones. Same eyes like winter sky. Maya. I hadn't seen her since the day she was married. 13. Hair done up in fake pearls. Red dress trailing on the floor like blood. I thought she was dead. Or worse, gone quiet. She froze when she saw me. The rice slipped from her hand. We stood there, strangers in a frozen moment, neither one sure if we were supposed to run or cry or speak. She spoke first. I thought you were gone. I shook my head. I thought you were. We didn't hug. We weren't those kinds of girls. But we walked. Down the frozen foods aisle, past carts and coupons and normal people who didn't know what it meant to be alive and still flinching. She was free. Left Rami 3 years ago. Got out with the help of a social worker. Now worked at a dental clinic in a nearby town. Had a daughter. Lived in a women's co-op. Does he know where you are? I asked. No, she said. And he won't. That night, she came to the safe house. Not as a victim, but as a volunteer. She wanted in. Wanted to help. Said she had a debt to pay. You saved me before I even knew I needed saving, she said. Now I'm ready. Maya wasn't the only one coming back. Other girls, ones I hadn't seen since the earliest days of the circle, were surfacing. Quietly. Bravely. Offering skills. Space. Time. We were no longer a chain of whispers. We were becoming a chorus. Which made what happened next even harder. The community elders, the same ones who'd hosted our weddings and praised obedience as holiness, requested a forum. Public. They called it a conversation on cultural integrity. We knew what it was. A show trial. A reckoning. They invited me. I went. Dressed in jeans and a plain sweater. No scarf. No lipstick. Just me. The auditorium was packed. Rows of aunties with pursed lips. Uncles with tired eyes. Girls I used to braid hair with. Boys who'd once called me honorless. The moderator was an imam with kind eyes and a very sharp voice. Today, he said, we open space for healing. Healing. Like we'd been sick. They took turns. Some praised tradition. Some defended change. Then one woman, old, tall, wrapped in black from chin to toes, stood up and said, girls like Sophia are trying to destroy us from within. She sells Western lies to our daughters. I stood. I didn't wait for the mic. I sell freedom, I said, voice steady. Not lies. And if freedom is a lie, then I pray your daughters grow up with mouths full of it. Gasps. But no one stopped me. So I kept going. You call it culture. But culture doesn't kill girls. Control does. Shame does. Men with money and mothers who hold them up like prophets. That's not culture. That's a cartel. I scanned the crowd. Found my mother. She didn't look away. I don't hate where I'm from, I said. I hate what you turned it into. Silence. Then someone stood. Another girl. Younger. Brave. My sister died, she said. You told us it was God's will. But it was her husband's fists. Don't talk to me about integrity. Then another voice. Then another. Like dominoes falling in reverse. And there, in that hall built to shame me, the tide turned. Not all of them. Not most. But some. And that was enough. The Liberty Act passed the House 2 weeks later. In the Senate, it was close. Too close. They brought in lobbyists, family values groups, cultural defense coalitions. They claimed the bill would criminalize tradition. Strip parents of rights. Attack faith. I was asked to testify. Again. National TV. Span. Every eye. I sat down in front of the microphone. Hands steady. Notes in my lap, untouched. I'm not here to kill culture, I said. I'm here to bury abuse. The vote passed 53-47. One of the senators who voted no later said on camera, "Girls like her are exaggerated." He was voted out the next year. Her name was Reem. 14. From Atlanta. Slim, quiet, always scribbling song lyrics in the margins of her notebook. She used to DM us through the Liberty blog using emoji code, for food, for escape, when she was scared. Then one night, the emojis stopped. No messages. No login. Just silence. That's how it starts. We called her backup number. Disconnected. Checked her school attendance, unreported absence, 3 days in a row. The shelter she'd been in said her aunt picked her up after filing a court-approved temporary guardianship. Only, Reem didn't have an aunt. I sat there, holding the intake file she'd written in her own shaky handwriting 6 months earlier. If they find me, I'm dead. I knew what this meant. They'd found her. We activated what we called the Dust Map, a real-time tracker of suspected abduction sites tied to forced marriage and trafficking. Our Georgia contact checked CCTV from a gas station near the shelter. There she was. Hair down, face pale, standing beside a man in his 50s. Her eyes didn't meet the camera once. He had his hand on her shoulder. The footage was timestamped 36 hours earlier. They were already gone. We didn't wait. Theodora and I flew to Atlanta that night. Within 12 hours, we had a subpoena request for the shelter's visitor log. A federal liaison on the phone. A burner phone triangulated through GPS metadata in Reem's last text. It pinged in Valdosta, a small city near the Florida border, close to a known extraction route. We got lucky. A postal worker flagged an address where a girl was screaming behind a locked screen door the day before. We drove 3 hours. Waited for a judge's emergency warrant. I knocked the door down myself before the cops even stepped in. Reem was in the basement. Face swollen. An old wedding dress laid out on the bed like a threat. She didn't cry when she saw us. She just said, "I knew you'd come." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I walked the motel parking lot with Theodora. "You broke the door," she said, a dry smile under her breath. "I'd do it again," I said. She stopped. Looked me square in the face. "You're not a survivor anymore," she said. "You're a commander." I didn't respond. I wasn't sure how. It was easier to fight than to lead. Easier to rescue girls than to live like one. But she was right. Back in D.C., there were other battles brewing. A lawsuit had been filed by a coalition of cultural rights organizations. They claimed the Liberty Circle was discriminating, that our messaging demonized faith-based parenting and violated religious protections. They wanted us shut down. Their lawyers were good. But ours were better. We filed our countersuit. Presented case law, affidavits, survivor testimony. We even had an amicus brief signed by 17 former child brides from different faiths and countries. They tried to use Reem's case against us, said we interfered with a family dispute. We dropped the photo of her injuries on the courtroom monitor. Silence. The judge dismissed the claim. Liberty Circle was upheld. 2 weeks later, I stood in a gymnasium holding a paper I never thought I'd get. My high school diploma. Ms. Clark was there. Theodora too. Even Maya. No cap and gown, I wasn't interested in that. But they clapped anyway. Loud. Unapologetic. I looked out at the bleachers, half empty, but more than enough. And I thought about how the girl I used to be, the one sneaking pamphlets in a waistband, never believed she'd live past 16. Let alone graduate. Let alone matter. After the ceremony, Theodora handed me a small envelope. Inside was a key. "What's this?" I asked. She smiled. "The new Liberty Circle headquarters," she said. "You're the director now. I used to think the world ended at the edge of our neighborhood. Turns out, it starts there." 6 months after I took over as director of the Liberty Circle, I boarded a plane for the first time in my life. No family. No groom. No gold bracelets. Just me, a passport, and a carry-on full of case files. Destination, Geneva. The United Nations had invited us to speak at a conference on forced marriage and gender-based violence. There were panels, delegates, translators, everything I used to think belonged to other people. Important people. Not girls like me who once crawled out of bathroom windows to stay alive. I sat backstage, clutching my speech with sweaty hands. Then I looked up and saw her. Ayaan. From Somalia. She'd escaped a marriage at 11. Now she ran an organization rescuing girls from child camps in East Africa. Beside her was Marisol from Mexico. Kiran from India. Sarah from the UK. We were all there. All survivors. All fighters. All wearing our own scars like armor. When it was my turn, I walked to the podium, heart pounding. I didn't read the speech. I didn't need to. I just told them the truth. We talk about culture like it's an excuse. But girls don't bleed differently in different countries. Abuse is abuse. We know the difference between tradition and terror. We live it. And we've learned how to fight it, together. The applause wasn't polite. It was thunder. And that's when I knew, we weren't just surviving anymore. We were leading. 3 weeks later, I was back home when we got the ping. TikTok. A live stream from a girl named Lila, only 13, crying in a car in rural California. Her mother sat beside her, silent. Her father in the front seat, driving. The title of the stream, "Going to Meet My Husband." We acted in minutes. Traced the IP. Flagged the livestream. Contacted TikTok's legal team. Lila's voice shook on the video. "They say it's a visit. But there's a dress. There's an imam. I don't want this." Hundreds of viewers watched, helpless. We weren't. We had a contact in that town. A woman who'd once been in our circle before disappearing into witness protection. She agreed to go. Grabbed her badge from her job at CPS and drove like hell. They were still in the car when she intercepted them. The father tried to say it was a misunderstanding. Lila just held up her phone and whispered, "They're watching." It wasn't just a rescue. It was a revolution, live-streamed. The aftermath brought new eyes. Our inbox exploded. Donations poured in. So did threats. One group, Fathers of Faith, labeled us a terrorist network. They accused us of brainwashing, kidnapping, anti-religious sabotage. We didn't respond with statements. We responded with expansion. The Liberty Circle went global. Partnerships with groups in Germany, Kenya, Malaysia. An encrypted hotline for girls overseas. A digital toolkit translated into 14 languages. A new clause in the Geneva Convention on Child Marriage, citing our model as innovative survivor-led prevention. Meanwhile, I returned to school. Not high school. Law school. Night classes, online mostly. I didn't want to argue cases. I wanted to write laws. And then came the night I got the letter. From Layla. She was dying. Stage 4 cancer. Alone in a hospice in Buffalo. She didn't ask me to visit. Just wrote. Don't waste your life being bitter. I did. You didn't. You made something. Please, let that be enough. It was signed with her full name. The same name they once erased from the family registry like she never existed. I wrote back. It's enough. And I'll make damn sure they never forget your name again. We were too loud. Too visible. Too effective. I knew it was coming, just not how. It happened on a Tuesday. Clear sky, quiet street. I was in a meeting at the new Liberty Circle headquarters, a modest 3-room office above a bakery in D.C. Our team was planning the launch of Liberty House, the first shelter built from the ground up, by us, for girls like us. That's when the fire alarm went off. Not a drill. Within seconds, we heard it, glass shattering, a roar like thunder, smoke pouring under the door. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail through our conference room window. We evacuated fast. No one died. But the fire gutted the entire floor. Years of files. Laptops. Photographs. Gone in minutes. A message was scrawled on the stairwell wall, in spray paint. You're destroying our culture. We found the can. No prints. Police said it was likely a hate group. Maybe a family member. Maybe both. They didn't promise much. But I didn't need their promises. Because we had ours. We moved operations within 48 hours to an old church basement, loaned to us by a local reverend who'd once sheltered a girl from Sudan. The work didn't stop. If anything, it doubled. We launched Liberty House in Baltimore a month later, 12 beds, 24/7 staff, legal aid on call, therapy, schooling. No curfews. No shame. No questions except, what do you need? On opening day, one of the girls, 16, from Oklahoma, pregnant and scared, walked through the front door and broke down crying when she saw the bunk beds. They always said no one would take me, she whispered. But you made a place. I didn't cry. Not then. But I did later, sitting on the floor of the empty staff room, holding the master key and realizing I had become the woman I once prayed would save me. A week after the fire, I got a letter. Unmarked envelope. Inside, a printed visitation request from the Federal Detention Center in Ohio. Inmate, Hassan H. My father. I stared at the paper a long time. He'd been arrested months earlier, conspiracy, trafficking, obstruction. He hadn't said a word during the investigation. Not once. Not to me. Now he wanted a meeting. I didn't want revenge. But I did want clarity. So I went. The prison was cold. Efficient. The waiting room hummed with the kind of silence that feels like a held breath. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not just older. Deflated. We sat across from each other. He didn't reach for my hand. Didn't smile. Just stared. I read about the shelter, he said. I nodded. You've made a lot of people angry. I've made a lot of girls safe. Silence. Then, why did you do it, Sophia? Why couldn't you just stay quiet? He didn't ask like a villain. He asked like a man who still didn't understand. I leaned forward. Because Layla's dead. Because Maya has nightmares. Because you made me watch you sign me away to a killer. And because I'm still alive. That's why. He looked down. Not with guilt. With disbelief. You think they'll remember you kindly? He asked. No, I said. I think they'll remember me accurately. Then I stood up and walked out before he could speak again. 2 weeks later, we held the vigil. No microphones. No speeches. Just 23 candles lined up in the grass. Each one for a girl who didn't make it. Amira. Zainab. Rina. Gada. Noor. Some had names. Some didn't. Some were still buried under false paperwork and family silence. We read each name aloud. Then lit the candles. I stood last, holding the final flame. When I lit the last candle, I said, simply, "We are not forgotten." The crowd echoed it back. Not as a chant, but as a promise. The room was white marble and crystal chandeliers. The podium had the seal of the United States. I stood just off stage, palms dry for the first time in my life. No nerves. No fear. Just clarity. The Liberty Circle had been invited to the White House for a summit on gender justice. I wasn't just attending. I was delivering the keynote. I thought of that girl in the red nightgown, running barefoot through the dark. I thought of the belt marks, the broken glass in my heel, the court clerk who didn't blink when I whispered the words, "Please help." They all got me here. I stepped up to the podium. And I told America what survival looks like when your own family is the thing you're surviving. They tried to write our story in silence. We rewrote it in fire. And today, we build it in stone. That same month, the Supreme Court ruled 7-2 in favor of SRV. Madison County, a case involving a 15-year-old girl forced into marriage under religious exemption. The ruling? No minor can legally consent to marriage under any condition. All state loopholes closed. The Liberty Act had become more than policy. It had become precedent. That fall, we opened Liberty School, a learning center for survivor girls. No uniforms. No dress codes. Just classrooms with doors that locked from the inside. Art. STEM. Therapy. Civics. A place where you didn't have to flinch when the bell rang. The first girl to enroll was named Layla. 12 years old. Escaped a marriage to a man 4 times her age. The first thing she asked me when she arrived? "Do I get to choose what I learn?" I told her yes. She cried like I'd handed her the moon. People kept asking me what's next. Was I going to run for office? Start a foundation? Write a memoir? The answer was no. I wanted to live. I wanted to wake up without checking every window. To walk barefoot through a house with no alarms. To fall in love without fear that love would become ownership. I wanted a kitchen where nothing burned. So I took a break. A real one. Stepped back from the board. Handed the reins to Maya and Asha. Went west. Changed my number. Taught night classes. Planted herbs. Fostered a rescue dog named Lantern who hated fireworks but loved belly rubs. I didn't vanish. I just finally arrived. One night, at a panel in Chicago, a girl came up to me after the talk. Maybe 16. Nervous hands. Big eyes. She didn't say hello. She just said, "I used your recipe card. The one with the cumin substitute. It worked." Then she hugged me. And for a moment, the world stopped spinning. I hugged her back. I still get letters. Emails. Court invitations. I go sometimes. Speak when it counts. But mostly, I let the others carry the flame now. The ones we saved. The ones we didn't. The ones still coming. The Liberty Circle is theirs now. And mine too, but in a different way. Not as a firebrand. Not as a symbol. Just as a woman. Alive. That's the story. Not of rescue. But of resistance. Of what it takes to burn the script they wrote for you and write your own. Of what it costs. And what it gives back. If you're reading this, and you're scared, if you're hiding in a bathroom, waiting for the sound of footsteps to pass. There's a window. It's small. High up. Painted shut. But if you work at it long enough, with steady hands and stubborn hope, it opens. I know. I climbed through mine barefoot. And I ran like hell toward the rest of my life.